Hi, everybody. Welcome to week 1 of our English 5795 online course. By now, I hope you've been able to watch the course overview video and look through the syllabus and poke around on the Canvas site. If you haven't done that yet, be sure to do that after you watch this video. In this video, I want to talk through the week activities page and give you kind of an intro to that page. It's going to be something that repeats weekly in our course site, and it'll help kind of set the stage for the work that we do each week. And then I want to talk a little bit about what you can expect from me in terms of what I'm looking for in our weekly assignments and how I'd like us to proceed as we work through the content of this course, which I think is really fascinating. And I hope you come to see that too throughout the term. Finally, I'll give a brief mini lecture looking at the readings. There are several, but they're very short. And I hope that they demonstrate to you kind of an overview of the course, like the course in a nutshell, but in, 7 readings or something. So without any further ado, I'm going to switch over to our Canvas view and we'll get right to it. Okay. So here's our Canvas site, and you can see there's the first day stuff posted here, support stuff for Canvas help, and then we get into each module, which basically covers a single week at a time. Each week has a schedule or an activities page that when you open it up, it gives you an overview of everything that's going on that week. If you've taken a class with me before, you've seen this setup, so it should feel familiar. This is like home base for us each week. And you can see that in an online course, even though we don't get to be together in person, I've tried to structure our work around different modalities so that you're integrating and interacting, that's the word I was looking for, with the material through multiple different modes. So there's stuff to watch, there's stuff to read, and there's stuff to write every week. This week, you can see a lot of our energy is going to be sort of getting situated with Canvas, thinking about the course in general. For your to watch this week, definitely watch the course overview video and your weekly instructor video, which is what you're doing right now, Air 5. The stuff to read, I'm asking you to choose 4 of the very short essays that are from this list, actually pulled from a special issue of College Composition and Communication Journal, 3 C's. And we'll talk about that a little bit more in the mini lecture, but if you have time and motivation, why not read them all? I mean, I just did to kind of prep for the mini lecture, and it doesn't take that long, and you might get a fuller picture of what we're going to be talking about. There's also the introduction from the Walter Hood book, Black Landscapes Matter, along with a brief essay that also kicks off the beginning of that book. So that's the reading for the week. Of course, you might also want to read through the syllabus and any other relevant course documents. Then we've got what to write. And there are 2 assignments, and as I talked about in the course overview video, these will be reoccurring assignments that I'm hoping that you approach in a specific order. If you didn't watch the course overview video, go check that out to see my explanation. But you can see here that I have this suggested schedule of Wednesday, Friday, Sunday set up, and I've broken down activities into those specific days so that not only can you approach the material in a logical order, but it will kind of reduce that cognitive load. You're taking it in kind of bite-sized chunks. So you can see, like for Wednesday, I'm suggesting to at least have watched the course overview video and started reading the selections from the special issue of C's. By Friday-ish, you will want to have watched this video and finished up your readings so that you can post your reading response, which again is your individual assignment. Then you'll be prepped and ready to go for a reflective discussion. Now, this is where I want to take a second to talk about my expectations around discussion. First, we'll look at the reading response. So each reading response is going to ask you to tackle several prompts. And what I want you to do here is think about reading all of the pieces and do some work in your own mind to synthesize them a bit. So, of course, you want to do your active reading and your annotating and then respond to these prompts, pulling together pieces as you see them connecting. Respond to all 5 assignment prompts and you'll get your full credit. Now, the discussion is a reflective discussion, and as we've talked about in this video, I'll be sharing with you the reflective prompt that you'll kick off. I'll do that in every video. So in order to fully get credit in your reflective discussion, you'll have to watch the video, which hopefully shouldn't be a burden because I'm going to do a mini lecture and talk about the readings. So it all works together. Now for this, you want to post your response to the weekly reflection prompt. And then I'm asking for you to engage with your fellow small group members. You'll notice that I've broken you into reflective discussion groups of about 5 each. And I want meaningful interaction here. I want us to push our knowledge forward, not just regurgitate what we've read. Because in a sense, if I just wanted you to prove that you'd done the readings, I would only assign you the reading response, right? Here is where I want you to really interact with each other, ask questions, push the idea further, whatever it is. Now, if you've taken a class with me online before, you'll know that I love these TQE moves. Share your thoughts, your questions, your epiphanies about the reading. So in each post on the discussion, you want to post your reflection, which I'll give in each mini lecture video. Make a TQE move. What's a thought? What's a question? What's an epiphany? Provide some evidence that all 3 of those moves is about 300 words. And then respond to 1 to 2 group members, giving them feedback. Here are some fluid discussion moves that I'm looking to see. And if you've taken my class before, you know that if I'm not seeing good quality interactions in the discussion, I might take a few points off for that. Just because, not because I want to be a hard ass, but because I want to push us to have more meaningful interactions. We would be able to do that probably very thoughtlessly if we were in a classroom together. We would just be able to have a discussion. Here, I'm looking for the same quality of engagement, even though we're asynchronous and online. So, if you have any questions about the discussion, about the reflective prompts, please don't hesitate to email me. But another note is that you've got, 4 distinct moves here in the reflective discussion. It is a good idea to get started on this before Sunday for a couple of reasons. First of all, it's just polite to your group members because it sucks to be the only group member in the discussion and nobody's interacting with you and you can't get your responses in because nobody else has posted yet. Please start this early. As soon as you've done your reading response, you can get started on the reflective discussion. And that way, if you start, say, Friday, you've got a couple of days in which you can be just checking in, responding to classmates, and keeping the discussion moving forward, okay? So plan in your mind, I'm going to start my reflective discussion early enough so that I can have good interactions with my classmates, okay? Okay, I knew that's what you were going to do anyway. Now I'm going to switch over to my PowerPoint and talk to you a bit about the readings. Okay, so in this mini lecture, I just want to do a little bit of groundwork, just setting the scene for us as we move into a semester of really grappling with the rhetorics of space and place and what that means for writing. So the subtitle of this course is Writing Ourselves in and into the City. And there's a lot of tensions and meanings layered into that subtitle, I guess you would call it. First of all, there's tensions embedded in writing and ourselves. So there's a lot of literature that grapples with distinctions of the writing process distinct from individual cognition, only embodied in an individual's cognition, solely socially contextualized or produced by social forces, right? So there's a lot. I'm not doing a very good job of summing up like decades of literature, but there is a tension between the process of writing and the self who writes. There we go. That's a nice, succinct way to put it. And this is also going to ricochet or ripple out into tensions between ourselves and the city. So writing, as we know, is a very complex, multi-layered process that happens both inside a person, silently within their cognition, and can happen in an embodied way. Then the body of the writer exists in space and time, in a location, such as my office where I am right now, in the city of Detroit, or any city, really. So there are ripples that sort of reverberate out from what we might call the disembodied cognition of a thought, the first spark of a composition that is an idea in my mind, and then how that gets mediated across physical bodies and literal space. So there's a lot of layered meanings here, just in the course title. But what I hope we can start to explore is not a compartmentalization of these complexities, but rather thinking of them as all interacting dynamically. So this is a very ecologically situated course, not literally ecologically, like I'm not going to talk to us about like the relationship between birds and pollinators, but I do want us to think about ecology as a metaphor for writing and the rhetorics of space and place and the individual interacting with the surround. So that's an image from Marilyn Cooper, who we're going to read a little bit more of next week. But there's a lot going on, and it's, I think, really fun to explore. Now, getting into these readings. What I did here was I wanted to present you guys with a couple of perspectives, well, like lots of perspectives, but the locations of writing essays from the special issue of C's is really giving you a writing studies composition-based perspective, and the hood pieces is getting more into the rhetoric side of things. And because I specialize in rhet comp, I think about both all the time. So when we think about locations of writing, just some highlights that I hope you take away as you read them is that there are multiple themes presented in these little bite-sized jewels of essays that we're going to keep recursively coming back to throughout the term. Environment versus embodiment. I was just talking about that a minute ago, but Ferris really brings that up with his discussion of the network and the physical presence of the coffee shop, but also like presence being something that could be physical or digital. So that networked presence versus physical presence is something that we do need to grapple with, especially like, look at us, here we are, embodying and not embodying a class together, right? We are not physically together. We have a networked presence in this class. So this is super relevant because we have been in this ongoing pandemic and we are really experiencing day by day more digitally mediated presence and spaces. I hope that you also kind of get this tension between the tangible aspects of writing and composing in spaces and the intangible. So like space can be physical space, and it can also be metaphorical space or digital space or mental space. So there's a lot of this tension between the tangible and the intangible. The nature of composing. So Smith talks about this in the short essay about writing in transit, but like what does it mean to compose? Do you have to be in a specific location? Do you even have to be presenting content in a certain way, in a linear way, in a, believable way, right? So these are all questions that are quite relevant to us in this particular time that we find ourselves. And then also there's this idea of how place, literal place, interacts with the significance of memory and informs a writing process. So Santi kind of talks about this because she is drawing a lot of meaning from a very particular writing environment. And that's something that we'll think about, especially as we get into the Writing Dig project next week. So, last thing to talk about in this mini lecture is the two brief pieces from the Black Landscapes Matter book, Walter Hood and Grace Mitchell Tata's edited collection. This is really going to, I think, bring the third kind of heat, if you're a 30 Rock fan. This is bringing a much needed perspective to a conversation which in the discipline of rhetoric has not historically privileged Black voices or even considered the Black embodied experience. When we talk about rhetorics of space and place, it's coming more to the fore, which is good to see. But I hope that this book will help us all sort of take a new perspective. So we're thinking here in this introduction to this book specifically about the value of Black spaces of habitation. What counts as valuable for a place of habitation? This is super connected to aspects of Black embodiment, but in this book, what we'll find is that the focus is really on place, space, design, purpose, and preservation. So we'll add that into our conversations as we go along, particularly because we live in Detroit, which has a history of being a majority Black city, and how this space has been contested, preserved, not preserved over the history of our city is important for us to grapple with. Hood especially brings to our attention something that we're going to explore many times this semester, and that's the significance of time when it comes to rhetorical analysis of space, or what creates meaning in a space, especially history. So what are the effects of a historical perspective? Why does it matter that we know exactly who built what building and why, for what purposes, or what buildings were destroyed to make room for a freeway, for example? This chronology not only goes back in time, thinking about history, but it also brings us to the present and into the future, because these very issues of not grappling with history, the white guilt and dissociation that is prevalent in our society prevents there from being the kind of preservation and celebration of Black spaces. And it doesn't always have to be that way. I think what Hood and the rest of the writers in this book are arguing for is a way to acknowledge that, yes, we live in a, essentially white supremacist country, and there's a hegemony that creates a status quo that those who are privileged do not want to dismantle. But it's important to at least acknowledge that that's what's happening, that that's where we are. Then hopefully we can make room for positive change that includes and celebrates and values everyone. So, if you have any questions about anything I just presented here, or that you come across in the readings that you'd like to chat about, feel free to email me. Don't forget to get going on your readings and your reading response as soon as possible so that you can jumpstart the process of working on your reflective discussion and getting everything in gear this week. I hope you guys have a fabulous first week of the semester, and I will see you in next week's video. Bye, everybody. Whoops, I almost forgot to give you your reflective prompts. So here they are. I'm going to give you guys a chance to jot them down. What are locations of writing that are significant to you? And slightly different from that, what spaces have meaning to you as a person and a writer? Why? So think about particular locations of writing, and then just think about the meaning of different spaces. So those are two distinct categories. A location of writing is a literal place where you write. And spaces that have meaning to you might be, like we said, more public spaces, metaphorical spaces, digital spaces. Let's start thinking about this as it relates to you. Okay,